welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast. Stamping everything of Camp RYLA District 5810. I'm Greg Tepper. Sitting across the table from me is the man they call Josey, Andrew Utz.
Hello, Greg.
Hello. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
So this is to pull back the curtain entirely and just ruin the entire illusion of how this podcast works. This is the first time we're recording in, like, months?
First time in this room probably since, like, May?
It was before camp.
Yeah.
And you know what? Boy, was it May? It might have been May because, or was it? No, we did it right
after
before
graduation.
Camp. We did it right before camp.
Yep.
We did it right before camp. But this is definitely the first time since camp. So camp was like 7 weeks ago.
Yes.
How was it?
It was great. You know, I did listen to whatever episode we recorded that was going to come out right after camp, and I had forgotten that we, congratulated Leah on her great week at camp, and I was like, man, we really dodged a bullet. That
we really
Leah
did.
Had nothing bad happen.
You go back and listen to these?
No, that was the one because I think I had a Helmberger reach out to me. Oh, it was the hypothetical shooting of
Stephanie.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have no idea what I said when I said it.
That was, I can't. I almost have a pathological fear of going back and listening to it because hearing myself talk in the first person all the time is bad enough. And then listening to it again, and all you do is criticize your own little faults.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's the worst. Yeah, I made that mistake once. Whenever I started doing podcasts and broadcasts and things like that, and I went back and watched it, and I was like, never again. Not even once. This is the official podcast of Camp RYLA District 5810. It's worth mentioning that. This is the first recording sesh that we've had since camp. And so all of the interviews you're going to hear were done at camp. Roadshows. And we were able to carve out this little bunker in the conservatory. But it makes sense, right? Because those are music practice rooms. So the insulation, what's the word?
Soundproofing.
Yeah, the soundproofing, the acoustics are all so perfect.
Yep.
It was crazy. I was like, man, this is really good. So if we sound bad, it's just us.
I was going to say it's just us.
It's just we can't blame Camp Hoblitzel. We can't do any of that. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Coming up here in a moment, we will have an enlightening conversation. I'm guessing. I haven't gone back and listened to it, and I was extremely tired when we did it. all of these interviews are I'm going to go back and listen to them, and I'm going to be like, man, I don't remember any of that. But we talked with Kevin Ward, who is otherwise known as I always forget. What is it?
The
Scooter. That's right. His name's Scooter. No, we're talking with Scooter, and had a great conversation about his connection to RYLA and all of these things. But in the meantime, before we get to that, we asked Scooter to pick a word. And I'm going to be entirely honest. I don't think we ever asked him about it. Because I kind of ran through it. I was trying to find the word, whatever we were asking for. And so it's possible that you guys are listening to the podcast, and you listen to his interview, and he says, oh, the word I chose was...
He definitely chose a word.
And I think that maybe we had already used that word.
Yes.
Maybe. In any case, I have not found the word that Scooter chose. My bad, Scooter. He's not going to listen to that.
He's not going to listen to it.
But, as a result, it's time to bring back Volume 2 of America's favorite version of this podcast, The Wild Card. That's right. The Wild Card episode is back. Wherein we more or less talk about whatever we want, but it comes with air horns whenever we say wild card. So there you go. And here with the big segment, something to think about, courtesy of Scooter Ward either choosing a word he already we've already done an episode on, or me just not finding the word, whatever you want to believe. Here's America's favorite co-host. It's Josey Ups.
Well, thank you, Greg. Wildcard episode. So I thought long and hard about what type of podcast we are.
Oh, no. A bad one?
No, we're definitely top 1,000.
In the world?
I got an email. We're top 1 something.
So iTunes started re-ranking their things, and at one point we were ahead of like the Animal Shelter of the Week podcast. A little bad. But I don't think we're a top 1,000 podcast in the world. There are like millions of podcasts.
Well, maybe in like our sector.
I would say this is one of the top 100 podcasts that I know about.
Okay. We'll go with that.
That's what I'll go with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just jump right in.
Do it.
Florida Man.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding. It's not about Florida Man, but I have Florida Boy written down here. So I don't know if you are familiar with the story. When this podcast comes out, it may be old news. But there's a Florida boy who wanted to wear his college colors to school. He's a 4th grade student in Florida. And he's a fan of the University of Tennessee. Do you know how easy it is to find a University of Tennessee shirt in Florida country?
Allow me to answer that question with a question. Do you know how easy it is to find a University of Missouri shirt in Texas?
Ooh.
Probably the exact same, which is not happening.
Yes. Okay, so what he did, he told his teacher, and the teacher said, well, just make one. So the kid made a shirt. He wrote on a piece of paper the letters U and T, and then also in much smaller print, University of Tennessee. And safety pinned that paper to his shirt. Some classmates made fun of him for his shirt, which that's a bad move.
That's a bad move, because that's some ingenuity.
Yeah, that's like I started thinking about things I would have worn to school had somebody said, hey, you can't wear a shirt. I'd been like, oh, I'll go find something else. I don't know if I would have had the creativity to come up with making my own shirt in 4th grade.
I just would have, I would have just bailed and been like, okay, I'll just wear whatever.
Right.
I
Exactly.
would not have gone the extra mile.
Well, in the spirit of going the extra mile, the boy's teacher reached out and tried to get the kid a shirt. And the University of Tennessee came through with a just bag of goodies, of swag, if you will. But it didn't stop there. They went ahead and made his homemade shirt a real, actual shirt being sold at volsshop.com, I believe.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And not all proceeds. Some of the proceeds are headed to anti-bullying agencies. And I believe at the time of recording this podcast, over 20,000 shirts have been sold.
Wow.
Yeah. So I bring up this wildcard segment because that got me thinking of one of your mantras, be kind.
It is in my Twitter profile.
Yes, Twitter profile, High School Scoreboard Live, video feeds.
That's right. Yeah, I do hold up a piece of paper at the end of programs.
And that just got me thinking the world is full of people that will tell you no and how bad you should feel for being yourself. And there aren't enough people, well, seemingly aren't enough people to just be nice to people. So I am here just saying, after I went down this weird, rabbit hole of Florida boy, Tennessee shirt, just like the news is full of negative things.
Yeah.
And the more you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and think wow, what bravery that took for, X activity, and think about how people would respond to you and how you'd want to be treated, being put in different situations. Through this wild card segment by my lovely wife, Joni, and brought up a bunch of sports metaphors, and she's like, is this a sports podcast or a leadership podcast?
It's not a sports podcast.
Right. But we are in high school football season, and in the wormhole, referees, collegiate athletes. I saw a chart of the number of collegiate athletes that make it to the pro level, and of the handful of sports they surveyed, it was less than 1.5% was the highest. And I thought about that as I'm watching a high school football game in Texas last Friday, and I'm like, maybe one kid from these teams is going to go on to make it to the pros, maybe. And that's
the odds are probably against it.
Yeah, and half the kids or less are going to play in college. But all that to say, just do your thing, enjoy what you're doing, and be nice to people.
There are two things that you bring up that you spark. One is that the be kind thing is something that I've kind of picked up on, and the thing that kind of hit me with it, and this is a couple of years ago, is somebody once told me that it doesn't cost anything to be kind. You know what I mean? It literally is free. It's not something that costs you anything. For example, if I want to, there are so many transactions in life that are going to require time or energy or money, but simply being kind is almost none of them ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you go above and beyond and it takes that kind of stuff, but just simply the act of being kind is not something that is it's free. It's something you do not have to put investment in. To your point about officials, okay, and this is a weird thing. Okay? So there is a pretty severe shortage of officials in the state of Texas for all sports. For obviously football in Texas gets a lot of the attention. Basketball, there's an organization called the Texas Association of Sports Officials, TASO, that there is a big shortage of officials, and one of the reasons is that it's kind of a hostile work environment. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That if you think about how many times do you hear people complaining about the refs and yelling at the refs and screaming at the refs and calling the refs such and such? Well, who wants to subject themselves to that? And we've had in my day job, we've done interviews with officials and said, what is it that the average fan can do? And more or less they just said, look, set a good example, because that is going to be, you are creating the atmosphere in which the young officials are going to see people who could be, because you're exactly right, 99.5% of all of those, let's put it this way, 99% of high school football players in the state of Texas won't go to college and play football.
Yep.
And then you take that percentage, and only 1.5% of them will go to the pros, right? We're talking about a minuscule amount. If you could just convince one of those kids to be an official, we would fix that official. One kid from each team to be an official, we'd fix that shortage tomorrow.
Right.
But you have to create the environment. And the point that you were making is so good, which is, simply the act of being kind to somebody and thinking, putting yourself in their shoes, has those ripple effects, and I think that's key. So I think your Florida boy story, you caught me with the Florida boy. Yeah, that's really good. I like that, Josey. Good job.
Well, thank you.
This is kind of a sports podcast, kind of, but not really.
Yeah. Leadership. I mean, the leadership aspect is and we're on the heels of RYLA. You want to cultivate. What can you do to kind of bring RYLA year round, and being nice and being kind and making that nurturing environment year round, I think is step one.
I think you're exactly right. Good job, Josey. That was a good first segment.
Thanks, Greg.
Good job. First segment in the bag. We did it. All right.
Nice.
Now let's turn this podcast up to 11. Not volume-wise. Don't worry about that. The volume will remain the same. I will equalize it. But in any case, we had an opportunity to sit down with Scooter Ward, Kevin Scooter Ward at camp. Had a great conversation with him. Stay with us on the RYLAcast. We talk with Kevin Scooter Ward coming up next. Oh, Josey.
Yes, Greg.
We find ourselves here at luxurious Camp Hoblitzell in Midlothian, Texas, here for Camp RYLA 2019. And we're here doing some interviews for the RYLAcast, right? Getting some hashtag content. Content is king.
Roadshow content.
Playing a road game. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to reach out to people who we don't see nearly enough.
I would agree.
That would be kind of the theme here.
Yes.
And so, a guy who is a mainstay around the RYLA program, but we don't get to see enough outside of camp. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the RYLAcast, for the very first time, Kevin Scooter Ward. Yay!
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Is this on your list of life achievements? Where does being a guest on the RYLACast rank?
Wow. Pretty high. Pretty high. Right up there with like stepping off Air Force One and
yes.
things like that.
Sure.
It's up there.
Exactly
Well,
how you
we appreciate that.
That's great.
We know you're a busy man, especially here at camp, but we're going to start this interview the same way we start every one of these interviews, and it's probably a different answer for you than anybody else. We want to hear your RYLA story.
Sure. I was a RYLA camper in 1994. We were at a different location then. We were at Bridgeport, Texas, Bridgeport Conference Center. And it was a small camp. I think we had maybe 100 campers, boys and girls. And I don't even remember my counselor's name. I remember my counselor's name. I don't remember my AC's name. My counselor was Gary Embry.
Oh.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's a
Gary
RYLA OG.
Embry was my counselor, and I loved it. I just turned into this completely different person within the week. This lady by the name of Penny, who drove a convertible Oldsmobile, came and picked me up and took me to camp, and she brought me home. And the Richardson Rotary Club sent me to Camp RYLA. Went to Richardson High School. And it was interesting because, little known fact, I am the first RYLArian to actually come back after being an AC.
Really?
I was the first one to start that process. I just kept coming back. I would call Mark and say, hey, can I come back? He's like, yeah, we have some work you can do. And I would just keep coming back. And then more and more people would just keep coming back. And then it became a thing, and staff and all that other kinds of stuff. Before, it was all volunteers who did everything.
So you kind of created the position of alumni staff.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm the OG alumnus. I really am.
Which speaks to, just showing up.
Just showing up. Be there. I also didn't have any friends. So
that helps too.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm always interested in talking with you about is you have done so many different things. It's not just that you've done a lot, because you have, but there are people who do a lot of things, but they're in the same vein. It seems like you have gone off on all these different courses, and I'm interested kind of in the lessons that you took from RYLA and how they helped you to be, let's say, Renaissance man.
Sure. I've been called a lot of things. That's a new one. For me, I think it's really about the word that I chose today, not to spoil the lead, but that is confidence. And RYLA gave me the confidence to know that regardless of what direction I step out into, I can make my way there and I can be whatever level of success I want to be if I put in the work. And that doesn't mean I'm going to get there every time, which is why I've done all these things, right? But it does mean I have the capacity to do it. And I think many people don't believe they have the capacity, and that's why they don't.
So, speaking of capacity, that leads me into, what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? I run a technology services firm. It's under the umbrella of a new entity we call the Madison Group that has multiple arms. One is human services, one is education, one is custom development, and one might be healthcare services here pretty soon. And we develop software solutions and provide technology consulting to those arenas. And in addition to that, I invest in real estate. I have a coaching thing that I seem to be doing with people now. That's become a thing, and I don't know how to not do stuff. It's a little weird.
We're speaking to you at camp, your 25th camp.
25th year.
And obviously it had a big impact on you. But there's also a difference between something having an impact on you and feeling the tug to give back to that program. What is it? Why are you here? Like, what keeps you coming back to here every year?
It recharges my batteries, really. There is not a day, and people really think I'm kidding when I say this, there's not a day I don't talk about Camp RYLA. Literally say those two words, Camp RYLA. There's not a day in Washington, D.C. or New York or San Francisco or Boston or Mexico City, wherever I am, that I don't say those words to somebody in relation to what we're doing or as it relates to a story I'm telling. And for me, that is the difference between something having an impact on your life and making an impression on your life. And I have often said when I've spoken in front of the group or just two people, live your life to make an impact, not an impression. And RYLA just made an impact on me that is so indelible that I don't know what I would do if I couldn't participate in it. It is that, core to who I am.
So unless you can stop me here, Greg, but when we invite lauded guests onto our RYLAcast, we usually...
Lauded?
Yes.
Boy, okay, we're just buttering him up. You can't see it, but he's doing that. He's doing that scooter smirk. That needs to be trademarked. Is it?
Yeah.
He said confidently.
So we invite our guests to plug something, whether it's a cooking website or book, TV show, group.
Anything. You basically get the floor for a couple of seconds.
I would say I want you all to support Adopt U.S. Kids. And there are a number of other sites on that website that have to do with foster youth and adoptive age youth and youth who are aging out of foster care and services that can be provided to them. As of today, there are probably 463,000 kids in foster care, of which 40,000 will age out this year and not have a clear direction on what they're going to do with the rest of their life. And people like those of us in RYLA and who are listening to this RYLA podcast have the ability to provide them with direction, to provide them with support, and I think it's just a matter of not knowing that people even need it. So that's it. AdoptUSKids.org.
You've spoken at camp. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've spoken at my camp in 03. That's entirely possible that you've spoken here. How has your message changed over the year? Because it seems like every time I listen to you, like there are common threads there, and I can be like, oh yeah, that's a scooter tagline, because I hear from when I work with the advisory council that all the time about the you that you are is better than the you that anybody wants you to be. That's a scooter go-to. But how has your message changed over the years?
It has changed as I have changed, right? Like as I've become more comfortable with myself, with the truth of who I am and what my family looks like and who people are in my life, my message has changed. But also as I've seen ups and downs in health, ups and downs in my career, my message has changed. Some years it's been about there are going to be really hard times and people aren't going to treat you well, but it's going to be okay. And other times it's been about be who you are. And lately it's been all of that, because the older you get, you realize that every day you can have rain in the morning, a tornado in the afternoon, and the sun in the evening. I'm not sure.
That works.
Yeah, it works. It worked much better in my head. But above the clouds, it's always sunny. Like the sky is always clear up there, and you have to get yourself above the clouds in whatever way you can.
And then, of course, honestly, the reason we had you on the podcast is to talk about your shoes.
Okay.
What are we at right now? What's the count?
The count for shoes right now, as of today, because I have a pair coming in this week, is 1,247.
And so I was going to ask shoes or pairs, but actually that now answers that question too. Is there one that you are, and you're either going to have like a quick answer or no answer at all? Is there one that you're just like really proud of?
Yeah, I have a pair. I have a pair of Converse Rivals, which were the sort of original basketball shoe. There was a version they were called the Rivals because there was a version for Larry Bird and there was a version for Magic Johnson. And I have a pack that they did where you got a green and white shoe and a purple and gold shoe. And I have two of them, and I have where you can make a set out of each. And I bought it at an estate sale for less than $100, and those shoes are easily worth $45,000.
Jeez.
Wow.
So.
And to kind of tie it all back, you're a glampaw.
I am.
And
I'm a glampaw.
You're a glampaw. And I can't help but notice that it's Elijah, right?
It is.
Elijah's kicks game is...
Oh, it's hot fire.
Really hot fire.
Hot fire.
How much is that? How much of that is you?
100%.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are now, like, you're passing these gifts on to even the next generation.
I wouldn't call them gifts as much as burdens. But, yeah, I mean, my husband, Chad, he's not into sneakers. My son, Norman, is not into sneakers. Eli doesn't really have a vote. So he is in the sneakers.
As the father of a young son, I can aspire to just thrusting that kind of
Until they have decision-making ability, you get to dress them the way you want to dress them.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Kevin Scooter Ward.
Yeah!
And our thanks once again to Kevin Scooter Ward for being our guest. The man has a lot of shoes.
A lot of shoes.
He's my shoe sensei. I've become a shoe guy. It's not.
Okay.
It is with deep regret that I announced that I'm a shoe guy, but I'm trying to follow his lead. Not nearly the kind of investment that he has, though. That's a lot.
But you got to start somewhere.
You do. But that's a lot of shoes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shoes. But they are all fire. So I appreciate Scooter stopping by the Hubble, the auxiliary studio for the RYLACast there at Camp Hobblitzel in Midlothian. Appreciate him catching up with us. Okay, it's now my turn to give you something to leave you with. Two things to leave you with. One, by the time you're listening to this, because I believe this is going to be the podcast that comes out on September 17th, because I'm going to edit tonight and I'm going to give it to you then. Let's just completely ruin the entire illusion of that.
Okay, I just had to check which date that was.
North Texas Giving Day is coming up. Okay? And if you're unfamiliar with North Texas Giving Day, let me tell you that North Texas Giving Day is an awesome way to help Camp RYLA. There is it is a day in which Camp RYLA is trying to raise... How much money? $10,000?
$10,000.
Yes,
sir.
North Texas Giving Day is scheduled for the 19th, September 19th, which is Thursday. So if you're listening to this the day this podcast comes out, it's coming out 2 days from now. If you're listening to it the day after this podcast comes out, it's coming out the 18th. Either way, you can donate by checking out the RYLA. Just go to northtexasgivingday.org. You can search RYLA on there, and they will find it. You can also find the Camp RYLA Facebook page. They will have links there. All sorts of good stuff. In fact, they're doing like giveaways and stuff like that.
They are. The committee or group, whoever we want to call them, is doing a great job. The Czars, the North Texas Giving Day Czars, are doing a tremendous, fabulous job at promoting this. Since early giving is open, like you had mentioned, until the 19th, they're doing giveaways, My RYLA Stories, which highlights a couple of alumni that basically walk you through their life.
It's like a Facebook post version of this podcast. So better is what I'm saying.
Yes.
And so they're looking to raise $10,000. Do your part, chip in. But more importantly, tell people. Like, tell your friends. Go to your friends and say, hey, donate to RYLA. It's important. That's not a good sales pitch. Come up with a better sales pitch than I did. But anyway, it's North Texas Giving Day. That's coming up on September 19th, 2019. So if you're listening to this podcast in 2020... hello from the past. You missed North Texas Giving Day.
2019.
But I bet there's another one coming up. Anyway. So at the end of every interview, we allow our guests to plug something, right?
Right.
I'm calling for the ball. I'm gonna grab the ball and I'm gonna plug something.
Okay.
Something I'm reading right now. Okay. I'm reading a book, not to brag.
Ooh.
It's a flex, but I am reading a book. The book is called, and this is very much not like me. This is me going out of my comfort zone. Okay. It's called Meditation is Not What You Think.
Okay.
It's by John Kabat-Zinn, I believe is how you pronounce it. But it is a book about learning mindfulness, learning how to meditate, and it really is. And I'll admit, I was walking through a bookstore. That is a store in which they sell words that have been printed on dead trees. It's like a Kindle, but more inconvenient.
Is it thicker? Is it a
some of them
thicker
are
Kindle?
some of them are hundreds of pages. Believe it or not, with no pictures.
Okay,
Yeah.
You lost me.
Okay. Anyway, but the title, I'll admit, I was walking through a bookstore, and the title caught my eye. And my wife is really into those self-help books. She really likes those, like, here's how you can improve yourself and be happier and things like that. And I've just always kind of rolled my eyes at that. So she was looking at them, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I was like, you know what? The title caught my eye. So I picked it up, flipped through it, looked interesting, and I'm about halfway through it, and it's been really good. It's been really it is, I think, really. I think that it has shattered some of the misconceptions I had about meditation. And I think that, as leaders, I think in a lot of ways we're always very outwardly focused. We're always focused on others. But I think self-care is very important as well. And the idea of mindfulness, I think, is something that is appealing to me and appealing to a lot of people. And so, yeah, if you're looking for a nice starting point and you're just like... you're interested in this, but you don't know where to start. This is where I was, and this has been pretty helpful to me. I haven't finished the book, so the end of the book might be terrible. But it's called Meditation Is Not What You Think. It's by John Kabat-Zinn, Kabat-Zinn. And I've enjoyed it, and I didn't think I would. So that is a small plug to take care of yourself. And there you go, if you want to get into that kind of stuff. But more importantly, the North Texas Giving Day thing. So that's my something to leave you with.
Well,
and
thanks,
that's it.
Greg.
That's all I came up with.
That's great.
That's it. That's all I did. That's all I planned.
We made it.
We did it. Hey, thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the RYLACast. Please rate and subscribe this podcast, and more importantly, please tell your friends about this podcast. And here, with an antiquated way to tell your friends about this podcast, is Josey.
Yes, go ahead and record your voice on a compact disc, but it's larger. It's a record. That's the word I'm looking for. And
did you really forget the word record?
Vinyl record. I forgot the word.
Oh no.
Yeah, record your voice on vinyl record and then send it to Washington D.C. and tell your friends.
Why Washington D.C.?
I was trying to think.
Do you know anybody in D.C.?
No, but we're watching.
Wait, you know who we know?
Well, I mean, yes.
You know who we
sorry.
know? You know who we know?
Oh, we know.
The guest of this podcast, Scooter Ward.
Sorry, Scooter.
A bizarre
and
dismount
Robert
on
and
this
Sarah.
podcast.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. And Josey, thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Greg.
We'll see you next time.